Shabbat shalom, brothers and sisters. I'm Rapha'Yah. We will take a little moment to thank you very much for everything that you have given us as far as your attention, your time. I know time is very valuable nowadays. And right before we start, I just want you to know and acknowledge that we are bringing a lot of productions lately. One of them has to be with music. We know for a fact that a lot of the music on the mainstream media is most of it is garbage, and so I take it personally. I've been wanting to do for a long time music, and that's what we're bringing lately. A lot of content, a lot of unique content based on the Torah, and also different genres as well. There's more to come. And once again, we're just experimenting in a lot of places, but it sounds really good. I get a lot of feedback. And once again, there is more to come, and with a lot of topics, a lot of content that is very unique, very uplifting, that it will help you, will help me personally. I really love it. And it is for our own growth in the Torah. So let's continue and to bring more. By the way, all this music is going to be uploaded into many platforms like Spotify, iTunes, and so forth, so you guys can listen to it in your own time. Let's jump into Parashat Wayetze, which means he left. This Torah portion talks about our father Yaakob, that he left, and there was a good reason why he left. But once again, we need to analyze all this content and these Torah portions that perhaps we need to take a little bit closer look into what we're talking about. In this Torah portion, what it said is where Father Yaakob went and he left his father's house. But once again, let's just start off right away. This is number 7 on the Torah portions, chapter 28, verse 10 to 32, verse 3. Yaakob Wayetze, he left from Beersheba and traveled to Haran. Why did he leave from one place to another? Is very simple, because he needed to travel from all the issues, all the troubles that he had on his father's house in the wake of his brother Esau. Esau wanted to kill him for the simple fact that apparently, quote unquote, he stole his blessing. He stole his birthright. But in reality, the birthright, he actually sold it to Yaakob, to Israel. And we have to understand the same thing as nowadays is that in order for you to have something legal, you need to notarize it. And it's exactly as we saw last week, he notarized it. He made a legal document. So that way, knowing his brother, his twin brother, knowing how trickster he was not going to be deceived by his own brother. So, verbally speaking, you know how people say, yeah, I promise you this, and they turn around like a day later and say, I never say such a thing. So that's one thing we need to learn from our forefathers. We need to notarize things. We need to put it on paper. As we hear all the time, we need to have the receipts. And it's exactly what Yaakob did. Let's continue. Look what it says in he traveled, verse 11. And he came to a certain place and stayed there for the night, because the sun had set. He took the stones from the place, put them under his head, and laid down there to sleep. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because we need to understand why did he got there and how did he got there. We have to understand that when he left his father's house, and let me pause here for just a sec, he left with a lot of money, with a lot of gold, with a lot of silver. And the reason why he left his father's house is because the Jitsa, his father, our father, he told him that he needed to marry somebody from the same lineage of his, which is the lineage of Shem. Remember what Abraham did to Yitzhak? He said, don't get anybody here from the Canaanites, because by they know by well known by their idolatrous practices. And this is exactly what Yitzhak is doing with his son Yaakob. He told them, but in order for him to do this, as his father did, Abraham, he gave him money to buy the wife. In other words, it was the custom to do that. So when Yaakov did left, he left with gold. He left with richness. So what happened in that gap of time? The Torah doesn't say that. But the book of Yasher, we're not going to go there because we already talked about it last year. But I just want you to know, just to revise, to review, to remind ourselves, to have a fresh mind, why did he got there to Betil, and why did he ask Yahweh for bread and for clothes? Because he was broke completely. Esau's son robbed him. He wanted to kill him, but at the end he forgave his life. And when he got to Betil, he was completely broke. No wonder when he got to Laban, he was literally crying his guts out. He was crying to Rachel. So that is one of the reasons why he got there in the first place, to ask Yahweh to give him his blessing. Where he was heading to, he was going to a place where it wasn't that well known. So now once again, let's continue here and let's find out what is the reason why. Let me show you the map. He was in Beersheba all the way down here, and we know that when he left Beersheba, he needed to pass. That's where he got jumped. That's where he got robbed by his own nephew. Do you believe that? He forgave his life, but after that, he's supposed to go to Haran, right? But he passed by Betil, aka Moreh, what it is. It is one ton today that is the future Beit HaMikdash. Now let's continue. Yitzhak wanted to give the birthright to his favorite son Esau. But we know for a fact that Esau squandered his birthright completely, and he was going to do the same thing with the blessing. Yaakob knew that because he learned it from his forefather Shem and Heber. He stayed there for a while. He learned the ways of Yahweh. He learned the Torah. He learned the how to serve the Creator, which is the Avodah, which is Melchizedek, knew how to serve Yahweh. He had the Kehunah, which is the priesthood, and Yaakov knew about it. But if the birthright needed to have the double portion, which Yaakov did not have, that's one of the reasons he took advantage of in order to continue that lineage, that service to Yahweh. Why? Because he was going to end in death with Esau. Esau was going to squander completely with this idolatrous practice with his wives and so forth. So therefore, the Kehunat, the priesthood, was going to die there. No wonder why Rivka, Yaakov's mother, told them that no matter what, you need to do this. You need to get the blessing now that you have the birthright. So in order for you to continue the service to Yahweh. And this, Yitzhak does the same thing to his son Yaakov to give the blessing. But look at what it says, as we stated before, and we do it again in Ecclesiastes 1:9, where it says that what it was, it will be again. The past repeats itself. Look at what it says. That birthright that he got, he did it again with his two sons that he adopted. Those two sons happens to be the sons of Yosef, his beloved son. And remember that Manasseh had the birthright, but when he crossed his arms, Yaakob, Israel, he gave the blessing to the Ephraim. You see that? The same pattern as before. Now that we know that, we and I will not get tired of doing this. We have the double portion. Ephraim, the house of Israel, we have the double portion of the Chotmat, the double portion of understanding, the understanding of the end of times, the understanding the Mashiach is coming right about the corner. It's almost here, but we need to bring them even faster by our deeds. Let me tell you this, and I will not get tired or ashamed to say this. Our Jewish brothers, they think they have the authority because of the sector that they might think they have. But as Batmi the book of Numbers says very clear, that until Shiloh comes, the scepter will be with Shiloh. Shiloh happens to be Mashiach. He came in the first century. He has the scepter. He has the authority. We, Ephraim, the northern kingdom, we have the birthright. One of the things that I keep telling many people, many brothers and sisters, is that we have the double portion of understanding through our Mashiach. But we do not realize we have it. We don't acknowledge the privilege that we have as the first right of our Creator. Even the scripture says very clear that my beloved son Ephraim, my beloved firstborn Ephraim, which I love with my whole hearted. That's what Yahweh says in the book of Yirmiyahu or Jeremiah. That way we understand the end of times. Mashiach is going to bring this salvation, not just for us only, but also to our Jewish brothers. But we need to acknowledge which position Yahweh puts us. Remember, those who are first will be last, and those who are last will be first. Is exactly what's going on here in this situation. Now, let's continue. Look what Yitzhak says to his son before he left his home. May Ayil Shaddai bless you, make you fruitful, and multiply your Serah, your descendancy, until you become a total assembly of peoples. The word assembly is kachal. Kachal is the word for assembly. In other words, we are the assembly of Yahweh throughout the nations. And many people are coming to the Hebrew roots because they're tired of idolatry. They're tired of traditions of men. It is our responsibility to bring this knowledge, the Torah, to the nations. And once again, we need to enforce this in a very loving manner. We need to acknowledge this in this end of times. Yahweh says that through the lineage to the Serah of Yaakob, this is happening in this very moment, the Charich Hayamim, which is the end of times, the end of the era. The word chal means the gathering, a congregation, an assembly. And this is exactly what Yahweh is doing this end of times. But once again, we need to acknowledge many things that Yahweh has been doing things the very beginning of creation, and is exactly what's going on. Let's go back over here. Let's switch gears. Book of Yashar 28 verse 18. At that time, Yitzhak sent his youngest son Yaakob to the house of Shem and Heber. And what happened there? He learned the Torah instructions from Yahweh, And Yaakob stayed there in the house of Shem and Heber. How many years? 32 years. But what happened to his twin brother Esau? He did not go because he was not willing to learn. He was not willing to follow the ways of Yahweh. Do you see that? And he stayed with his father's house in the land of Canaan. What did he do there? He married a bunch of people that they were idolaters. No wonder why the Torah is very clear where Yitzhak, where Rivka, especially Rivka, the mother, our mother, was to the point where she just wanted to die because of the idolatrous practices these women were bringing to this house. And remember, when there is idolatrous practice, there is a curse. And she did not want this whatsoever. So that's one thing that Yaakov learned the ways of Yahweh. And no wonder when he went to Laban, he was already learned. He was already conditioned to the ways of Yahweh. Now, let's continue. And let's talk about a little bit of Laban's wife. 26 of book of Yasher, in the 60th year of Yaakov's life, the people came from Haran, and Rivka was told about his brother Laban, the son Bethuel, for Laban's wife was barren those days and had no children, and now all her maid servants gave her any. That means that no one was willing to give or was able to give any children because they were barren. Now, what happened there? Yahweh did something. Afterwards, Yahweh remembered Adinah, the Laban's wife, and she conceived and bore twin daughters. Laban called the name of his daughters, the first one Leah, and the second, the young one, called Rachel. They happened to be twins. And this is something that we're not making this up. And just because the book of Yasher said, even our Jewish brothers, they mention this, they give reference about this situation. So no wonder why our father Yaakov, when he was in Laban's household, was able in a certain degree recognize or could tell the difference between one another. Rachel was a beautiful woman. Leah was beautiful, but the problem with Rachel is that her eyes were always sad, always crying. And the reason why she was always crying is because those two daughters, twins, were already being given to another set of twins. Who were they? Exactly what you think what it is. It was Yaakov and Esau. The oldest, Leah, was going to be given to Esau, Leah to Esau. Both of them are the firstborns. And she did not want to marry Esau. Why? Because it was an idolatrous man. He did not want to go with him. Rachel, in other words, was going to be given to Yaakov. But what happened here, Laban used his trickster. He tricked Yaakov, and no wonder why Yaakov could not recognize in a certain way, especially when he was drunk. It was nighttime, it was dark, and they were twins. So it was one thing after another one, until the daylight he could tell one another because of the eyes. So now we know, and this is just an example so you can see how beautiful Rachel was and how Leah looked, because she was always sad. She was always weeping. And of course, somebody, you see somebody weeping, and that's what it is. They don't look the same when they're not sad. And that's one of the reasons you can tell them apart. Now, let's go a little bit forward. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is for us to have an idea of what we're talking about. Now, let's jump into something that I want you to acknowledge this, okay? And look at what it says here in the book of Yasher, 30 verse 1. And Yaakov went out his way to Haran and came where? To the mountain Moreh. And what was the Moreh? and remained there the night near the city of Luz. Luz is not a Spanish word. It happens to be a Hebrew word, which in another time we'll explain what it is. And Yahweh appeared to Yaakob that night, and he said to him, I am Yahweh Yil Almighty, of Abraham, of Yitzhak your father, in the land which I give you and your seed. Here, once again, this place wasn't just any place. This place happens to be the future Beit HaMikdash, where Yahweh was going to actually have this place set up as a temple, as a mikdash. Let's continue. Look at what it says here, Targum Yonatan, on Aramaic version of this verse. And he prayed in the place of the Beit HaMikdash and stayed there because the sun has gone down. And he took 4 stones from that place, kadosh, or set apart, and laid down his pillow and slept in the hut. So what we see here is once again another reference how our father Yaakob was able to manage, how was able to acknowledge that place, that it wasn't just any place. And he said it himself. Now let's find out what happened when he was, let's continue this. And let's bring the place, this makon in Hebrew, it is always referred to the Beit HaMikdash. Deuteronomy 16:16 says the place of his choosing happens to be the Beit HaMikdash. Genesis 22:4, the place in the distance when Yaakov was going, when Yitzhak was going to be offered in the Akedah, or the binding, was the Beit HaMikdash in the future. Jeremiah 17:2, our place kadosh, which is the Beit HaMikdash. Exodus 33:21, there is a place near me, happens to be the temple, the Mikdash. So we see one another, and this place happens to be in the gematria 130, the same number for Sinai. Those happens to be Moreh, and also the word Sulam. That's a gematria that happens to be a door, a gate. Okay, a gate that is open directly to our Father Yahweh Sebaot. Now let's continue. Look at what it says here, 28 verse 12. And it sounded there that in front of him there was a ladder resting on the earth, and with its end he reached the Shemayim, the heavens. And the Malachim of Yahweh, the angels of Yahweh, went up on him. See, the word bow in Hebrew means on him, but let me pause here for a second, because I want you to acknowledge something very important. In the traditional Hebrew, even in all the translations, it says that the angels went up and down on it, meaning the ladder. But the word bow is almost the same, almost the same as Spanish. Okay? Like the table, la mesa, is like female. Okay? So in other words, here, bow in Hebrew means on him. Who was on him? The angels? It happens to be Yaakob himself. Why? Because Yaakob was going to be the medium in his DNA to bring forth the lineage, the peretz, the gap between Yahweh and man. No wonder why Yaakob had 12 sons, because these 12 children, these 12 tribes, were going to be scattered around the earth. Now we understand why Yaakob said it. Now we can actually put it together. What Mashiach said this, the same wording. Then he said to him, yes, truly I'll tell you that you will see the open heavens and the Malachim, the angels of Yahweh, to go up and down on him. Do you see that bow? On him, which means in the Ben Adam. In himself, in Mashiach. You see that? The same goes with Yaakob, the same with Mashiach. Mashiach happens to be the gap between Yahweh and us. The same as Yahweh is with us, a gap to our Father to bring the Torah to the nations. You see the connection there? Now we understand why. Now we understand why the Mashiach is the door, the Sha'ar. Look at what it says here. Look at what it says, Yaakob, about this place. 20 verse 17 of Genesis. Then he was afraid and said, this place, this Makon, is fearful. This has to be the Ayil, the Almighty's house. And this is the Sha'ar, the gate of the Shemayim, the heavens. You see that? This gate, this place was going to be the future temple, was going to be the gate to Yahweh. Now, it is important for us to understand that Mashiach is also himself the gate. Look at what it says here, John 10:9. I am the Sha'ar, I am the gate, I am the door. If somebody enters through me, he will be safe and go out and find pastures. Why? Because Mashiach happens to be the peret, happens to be the gap, happens to be the bridge to Yahweh, our Creator. Closing, what we see here is a gap that we also as well need to bring forth in these end of times. We have the capability to do a lot of things, but it's up to us to make the connection to Yahweh and the nations. How? By bringing Torah to the nations, just as Mashiach has done it. I'm Moreh Rapha'Yah. We'll see you next time. Next week we'll bring another Torah portions. Please subscribe if you have not subscribed so you can get the latest. And once again, there's a whole lot of music coming soon. I'm Moreh Rapha'Yah. We'll see you next time. Shabbat Shalom.
Again.
Toda Rabba. If you like this video, please give us a like and subscribe to our channel. There's more content in production. Thank you.